What's up, riders? Old Man Ronin here. Welcome back to the channel. Yeah, we're leaning here in the shop on the old Toad Glide, and I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the questions I've been getting over the last couple of months. In particular, on fans of Old Man Ronin, the new Facebook group that I put together, as well as Instagram. And the question comes almost daily from particularly Harley riders. Is the Royal Enfield Himalayan worth buying? Let's get on the bike and talk about it. Stay tuned. So, is the Royal Enfield Himalayan worth buying? Well, there's a couple questions that you have to ask yourself, and people are looking at. I mean, I'll tell you what, a lot of Harley guys are looking at the Royal Enfield Himalayan now because the fact that they've got spurred on by the release of the Pan American here a few weeks to a month ago, and they're looking at it and said, you know, I don't know if I want to get into adventure riding and spend $20,000 or whatever it's going to cost for the motorcycle. I really don't know. I haven't seen one in person yet, but I'm sure that I will in the next several weeks. I'd like to take one for a test drive, no doubt about it. But I'm getting the question because the Harley riders are saying, and myself included, do I really want to spend that kind of money on something I really don't know that much about? Because personally, if you've been riding Harleys your whole life and are used to that big heavy machine and not, you know, basically not sitting straight up like you do on an adventure style bike, you don't really know if it's going to be something that you want to get into. So the Himalayan is actually in the right price point for somebody to give it a try. And you know, personally, if you don't like it and you want to sell it used to me, I will take it. But the first question that you have to ask yourself, is it appealing? What I mean by appealing is, does it really trip your trigger when you look at it? I mean, the motorcycle has a very industrial look. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's got the old school look. Not really. Not old school. When I think of old school, I think of 30s, 40s, and 50s looking motorcycles, you know, like my Deluxe. And the Himalayan really doesn't have that look. It's got a simplistic look, a industrial look, and that's really the way that I'd like to term it more than anything else. It's very industrial looking, and that look is very appealing to me. I like the simplicity of the design. I like the way that it looks, as far as not overwhelmed with a lot of you know, plastic and you know, in fancy funky colors. I mean, this bike is black and it fits my mood and my personality perfectly. I love black motorcycles, and in the Harley world, that's pretty much everyone that comes off the line is standard painted black. If you want colors, it's usually an extra charge, and I've never been one to pay extra money, although I have bought one Harley Davidson brand new in my life, and it was my 2007 Street Bob, and I like that motorcycle. It's just that when I sold it, got a really good deal for it, and somebody was wanting it. It was just the craze of the club style bikes, and that bike and the Street Glide really fit that realm. So I sold that bike, and I kind of wish I'd have kept it. I did like it. I love Dynas, man. They're fun. They're light and they're powerful, and that's one of the things that I do like about them. But coming back to the Himalayan, you have to ask yourself if you like the look of this. I mean, there's bikes that have a totally different look in the same realm, like the KTM 390 or the Adventure or the BMW 310. Those would be, I'd say, the closest relatives to the Himalayan as far as in size and performance. And you have to ask yourself, do you want to spend more money on those? And more important than that, does it really fit the look that you're going for? I mean, for me, being a tinkerer, the Harley Davidson look, the ease of, you know, of working on it, and the look of the Royal Enfield Himalayan kind of goes hand in hand. I think it's a beautiful design. Again, it's that simplicity of design. The way that it looks appeals to me on pretty much every level. And obviously, when we started in the garage this morning, I'm working on the Toad Glide, that you know that I really love working on bikes. I want to tell something to people. You know, I know if you're new to the channel, you haven't seen my other Harleys, but every one of my Harleys started out in similar conditions to what the Toad is. The difference is I turned them into garage queens, which I promised I wasn't going to do with the Toad. But as far as the Himalayan being appealing to the eye, that's one of the questions you have to ask yourself. Does it trip your trigger? Does it float your boat? Is it something that you really want to enjoy looking at? You know, the old saying is, if you don't look back at your motorcycle after you bought it, you bought the wrong motorcycle. And I really believe that is true. That is you really have to be happy with the way things look at it. Now, a lot of guys that ride adventure bikes don't fit that realm. These are, I'm talking about the true adventure bike guys, the guys with the big GS 1250s and the Tigers, the big Triumph Tigers and the big KTMs and things like that. Those guys ride them and they don't wash them. They think it's a badge of honor, and that's cool. That's them. That's not me, but that's them. And they really, you know, they think of it as a tool, and that's a really good aspect of it. It is a tool. It's a machine to get you to places that you cannot go in other motorcycles. And I think the Himalayan, as far as looks wise, does it better than any other motorcycle. So what's the next point? Performance. And that's really what I'm talking about when it comes to, is it worth buying? Now, is this bike a 0 to 60 motorcycle or a quarter mile? No, that ain't gonna happen. If you want a motorcycle like that, and you have to have the adventure style, jump up into the GS 1250s or the Harley Pan American or the Triumph Tiger. Those motorcycles, the KTM, those motorcycles there have a lot more performance. However, and they do really well on the highway. If you're going to be on the highway 70 miles an hour all day long, not the bike for you. It's not worth buying. However, if you're going to do what I'm doing, traveling back roads and country roads and gravel roads and dirt roads and deer trails, this bike has plenty, if not the best in its class for power. What I mean by that is this thing has tremendous engine braking. It's got tremendous low-end torque, and I'll tell you, there's quite a few videos that I've already done on this low-end torque in this motorcycle, and I encourage you to go through my catalog of what I have out there, and I think you'll find some very interesting thoughts and ideas about low-end torque and what I think this motorcycle does. I always say you can walk this motorcycle better than any other one, and a lot of people misunderstand what I mean. I don't mean getting off of the motorcycle and pushing it and, you know, just basically using your feet like duck walk. I don't mean that. I mean it literally with using the friction zone and using the throttle. You can literally crawl this motorcycle, or what I call walk this motorcycle, in areas that you can't do with higher revving engines. That's why I love the performance of the 411cc single long stroke engine that this puppy has. I mean, they designed this engine specifically for the Himalayan, and I know there's a lot of guys out there who are saying, man, I want the 650 twin in it. I don't. If they were going to change the engine at all, I would say maximum 525, 500 cc's, and that really you don't even need. Not for what this bike is doing. I wouldn't mind a 6th gear if they're going to be changing stuff, just because it'll bring the RPMs down when I do happen to go on the highway at 65 miles an hour. It would bring the RPMs down. It wouldn't let the little engine work as hard as what it is. But in reality, that's not what I got this bike, and that's not what it's worth buying for. If you want a motorcycle that's going to go on the highway, there are plenty of options out there that are better suited. But if you want to do what I'm doing, if you want to get on the back roads, you want to cruise, you can even bring your wife or girlfriend or kids or whatever, not kids, but kid, somebody with you. And if you remember the videos we did down in Florida this winter with the 2-up riding, it handles 65 miles an hour with 2 people with no problem whatsoever. And I think the maximum was 5,200 RPM. So the performance on this bike in its realm, in other words, low-end torque, crawling, walking through the trails, going on dirt roads, on gravel roads. I mean, you've seen me ride, if you've been a frequent viewer of the channel, you see me ride the gravel roads 35, 40 miles an hour. Yeah, you're going to get some shimmy, shimmy, shake, shake. People love when I say that. But you're going to get some of that in the front end, but remember that the bike's going to do what it wants to do, and you just got to remind it which way to go. But in essence, it is perfect and built specifically for that. I get a lot of guys that from India that comment on my on some of my videos that you can tell they've only watched one, and it's either the what the F a Harley rider doing on a Himalayan, or the top 5 reasons to buy a Himalayan, or the video based on Can It Take It on the different road surfaces, which is the one I'd recommend if you want to understand what this bike is capable of. Go watch that video. I'll put a little picture up there, what it looks like, and a link. I'll put a little card as well with it. But it'll tell you what this bike can and cannot do when it comes to highways and roads in this part of the world, and I would say even in India and Pakistan and pretty much all over the less developed nations. Now I watch what I say because that's not a crack on things, but even the Indian folks will admit that their roads aren't as good as what we have here in the US on an average. Now where I live, the roads aren't that good. I mean, this one's really nice. This is a backcountry road, but some of the gravel roads are rough as nails, man, I'll tell you what. And that's where the performance of this motorcycle really, really shines. So what's the next thing? Reliability. I've had this bike now for let's see, 8-9 months, and I've had 0 issues with it. A lot of guys complain about the batteries on let's go down this gravel road right here. We'll complain about the batteries on the Himalayan. One of the first mods I did to the Himalayan was putting a battery tender junior on it, and I haven't had an issue as far as with the battery. Now, will I change the battery before I go on the excuse me. Now, will I change the battery before I go on the Trans-America Trail? I might go to a lithium ion just to keep the weight down, because I'm going to be hauling a lot of stuff for a long period of time. But the lithium ion batteries, to be honest with you, are, I mean, they don't hardly weigh anything, but I really haven't had any need for a new battery as of yet. Now, whether some of the older batteries that Royal Enfield were using when they first came out as far on the Himalayan, I don't know. This is a 2018. This is not a brand new motorcycle. This is a 2018, and so when I got it, the battery was already 2 years old, and I keep it on that charger, and it is literally giving me no issues whatsoever. There's a couple reasons why I do, and the main reason I do is because I did put this little guy here, this USB charging system for my phones and for my cameras and stuff, and I got it hooked directly to the battery. And I think there probably, I haven't put a meter on it to check, but I'm sure there's probably a parasitic drain on the battery, but the float charge of the battery tender junior keeps that thing right where it needs to be, and I think that's really important. And there may be parasitic drains on the battery for that you don't know of, and the only way to actually check that is to check the current flow coming out of the battery when it's sitting still, and I haven't done that yet. But as far as me having the battery issues or reliability issues, none whatsoever. The only problem I would say that I have, and I'm not going to blame the company for this, is I don't like the chain. It doesn't hold up to Ohio winters, because we use a tremendous amount of chemicals on our roads during the wintertime, in particularly a sodium chloride type stuff, and it just eats the chains royally. Now, before I go on the Trans-America Trail, I will be changing the chain, because not because it's wearing out, because I won't have the opportunity to lube it probably as much as I do at home. And I know a lot of guys give me crap sometimes. They'll see when I'm starting to do a video, they'll see, man, that chain looks like it needs lubed up. Yeah, it does almost daily, because the chemicals that Ohio puts on the roads are really hard on chains and motorcycles in general, which is why I wash my bike more than anybody else probably in the adventure market, in the adventure world, because I do ride year-round. I did with my Harleys, and I do with this as well too. And in fact, this is my really go-to motorcycle for winter riding. And with that said, you've got to keep these things clean, or the chemicals they put on the roads will just eat them alive. But as far as other issues, none whatsoever. The tires don't lose any air pressure, I mean, other than temperature changes. The engine is strong as can possibly be, and I've run it at very high speeds. I've had it up to 78 miles an hour, the highest I've ever had it. But as far as that goes, no issues whatsoever with anything loosening up or falling off. I think the bike, as far as being reliable, it is very reliable. And that brings us to our next point. Another gravel road, isn't it beautiful? The next point is comfortability, and that's something you have to look at as well too. Is this bike comfortable? I would say for a stock seat, because I haven't done any upgrades to it, this bike is extremely comfortable in the saddle. It's got a really cool stance to it. I really enjoy the way that I'm sitting straight up. Now, I said when I first got the motorcycle I wouldn't mind the bars being a little higher. I changed my mind on that. In fact, if you watch my video, I've changed my mind, which is really a popular video as well too. You'll see that I don't really think I need to change my bars on this. I'm going to keep them exactly the way they are. I'm also I don't think I'm going to change the seat. I know a lot of people are saying, get the touring seat, it's so much better. I don't really have an issue with the seat right now, and I've been, I'd say the farthest trip that I've taken in a one-time shot was 175 miles before getting fuel again, and I really didn't even need fuel yet, but I always like to make sure that I'm full of fuel. I carry fuel bottles with me, and that's something that I'll show you in the future when I get my panniers and stuff finally coming in, that I carry fuel bottles. I got 2 of them from Lowbrow Customs. I'll put the link in the description, and I strap them right to the sides of my soft luggage. Yes, if you guys don't know, I'm getting soft luggage, and the company that I'm getting them is called Lomo. They're out of the UK, and I'll put the link in the description as well too. But as far as the comfortability of this motorcycle, it rides easy, it rides light, it's very well handling. I don't get fatigued. The only issue that I would have, not necessarily the seat height, maybe a little bit, because I am over 6'2", is I would really like to see it more flat. And I know the reason they do it. They do it so you can, it's kind of like the step-up seats in a Harley Davidson. They do it so you're locked yourself in. But I would prefer it to be straight back. That way, in other words, more of a level seat, like on the old style Hondas or dirt bike, if you will. That way I can slide back and slide forward when I need to. That would be the only issue that I would like them to change as far as comfortability, and it has nothing to do with the cushioniness of the seat, but it gives me more options when I'm doing rough roads, like I can lean back and sit back, or I can stand up and sit back. I think that would be a better aspect. Now, as far as for highway touring, it wouldn't be. Well, maybe it would. Let's say I can slide back and stretch my legs out a little farther as well too. So there might be an application for that. But as far as the bike being comfortable, I think it's very comfortable. And you have to ask yourself, what are you going to do with the bike? Are you going to make those long distance rides? Because maybe that's not really the motorcycle for you all the time. Now, if you're doing a long distance back road tour, completely different. Then the bike will probably fit your needs very well, and I would say definitely worth buying. You gotta love these gravel roads, man. I surely do. You know, it's one of those things. The way that this bike is put together, its roughness, its toughness, its industrial look, it's a well-made machine. And I use the combination of terms, either a tractor or a mule. It really fits those realms. And I think the final thing that we're talking about, as far as if its bike is worth buying, is its serviceability. Now, I kind of leaned on it a little bit when I was talking earlier about the performance and also the look, about the simplicity of design. But this thing here is really easy to work on. I mean, obviously I've never owned a Royal Enfield in my life before, and I was able to because I've always had metric tools, because you know you work on modern cars and you know you've got to have metric tools. So I didn't have to go out and buy any special tools for the motorcycle. All I did was, you know, basically get a service manual, and my local dealer, Throttle Company or Royal Enfield of Columbus, gave me, so nicely of them, a service manual. It's a downloaded one, the same one that they have. But the cool thing about it is, if you're a member of my Patreon, you know, if you're a member of Old Man Ronin Patreon group, I actually put that service manual on there so you can have it as well too. Because what's free for me on Patreon is free for you. So that's one of the reasons why I did it. That way, if you're a tinkerer like I am, and you want to be able to service your own motorcycles, you can very easily with that that service manual that is on my Patreon page. So if you want to join, as little as $1 a month. But it comes back to the ease of serviceability and the fact that there's more and more dealers every year in America. Now, when I first started looking at a Himalayan, I didn't even know Throttle Company or Royal Enfield Himalayan of Royal Enfield of Columbus even existed. And I was going driving an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours away to try to see what they even look like. I got turned on to the motorcycle by two people. Itchy Boots, which I give credit for her a lot. She's riding Hondas now, but Itchy Boots and Kamikaze Moto out of Alaska. And those guys there, they kind of showed me what the bike was capable of doing without, and I trust their opinion, without a lot of problems. I mean, Itchy Boots rode all over India and Southeast Asia and up through the stands and into Europe with virtually no problem. I think she had trouble with, she burned a clutch up one time, but that was, she said it was her fault. She was using too much friction zone at too high of RPM. And yeah, that'll do it. No matter what you say, that'll do it. But and I think Kamikaze Moto, he's been up to the Arctic Circle and back with virtually no problems either. And he bought the bike in Seattle and then rode it all the way up to I think he lives in Anchorage, and then took the bike the next year from Anchorage up to on the Dalton Highway up to the Arctic Circle and back. So both of those YouTube channels have shown me that the reliability is there, true, but also that you can service these bikes pretty much yourself. And I think that's really, really an important aspect of having a motorcycle, particularly if you're a tinkerer like I am. I love tinkering with motorcycles, and you can tell if you've watched my channel. I tell you what, another great gravel road, guys. But if you watch my channel, you know that I really do enjoy working on motorcycles. Now, I am very Harley centric, but I'm pretty confident after, you know, changing the oil in this thing. Wie geht es Ihnen? Little German lingo for you. A little that I think is really similar to what a Harley Davidson would be like, because the fact that I think the ease of the simplicity of design and the ease of maintenance is really similar. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things in my book on why it's worth buying. There's so many things to look at. Now, we've talked about the appeal to it. Does the appearance look good to you? The industrial look of the bike. We've talked about the comfort level, how comfortable it is, the stance, how it sits, and you know, how the seat feels. And you know, so there's a couple issues that I might want to change down the road. I think the next series or the next edition of the Himalayan, I think if they would make the seat a little different, you know, more flatter, that would be more appealing to more of a world market, in particular for bigger guys like me. That gives the, like we talked about in the comfort, that I could slide back when I'm doing different maneuvers on the road and on the trail. And we also talked about ease of service. All these things, I think, boil down to, if you know what you want in a motorcycle and you're really asking yourself the hard questions, not just because, well, it looks like it'd be a fun bike to have, but is it going to fit the realm of what you want to do with your motorcycle? Is the Himalayan worth buying? Thumbs up, baby. without question. It is a very, very good motorcycle. And I haven't mentioned this in a while. Every time I ride this bike, I'm riding with a smile on my face. And that's going to be a bonus tip, that it makes me so happy riding. I love motorcycles in general, but this bike makes me giggle. It really does, because it's fun. It's light in the saddle. It's fun on the corners. It's great when you're riding down the road and seeing the sights and sounds that I'm seeing, like today. This is a beautiful area, and that's the kind of stuff that you can get when you're riding a motorcycle like this, that you may not be able to do in your Harley Davidson or your big other cruisers like a Goldwing or any of the bikes in that realm, that you might not be able to appreciate as much. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, make sure you give us a big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification button, share and comment. You know, I read all the comments and comment on as many as I possibly can. Until next time, everybody, ride safe and keep her on two wheels, baby. Let's enjoy some of this beautiful scenery.